The victory celebration is about to begin, and I want to invite you to join us now.
Welcome to the Victory for the World Church in Stone Mountain, Georgia with Pastor Dr. Kenneth L. Samuel. Romans 8:37 tells us we are more than conquerors through Christ that loved us. If you need encouragement today, stay tuned.
Maybe heaven is not necessarily a place where there is no pain. Maybe heaven is a place where everybody who experiences pain recognizes the need for healing.
Romans 8:37 tells us we are more than conquerors through Christ that loved us. If you need encouragement today, stay tuned.
On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Our topic today, heaven must be like this. In the book of John's Gospel of the Revelation, we get an awesome preview of what heaven will be like. In chapter 21, John said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, adorned like a bride for her husband. Then John said, I heard a voice from the throne, saying, the home of God is among mortals. God will dwell with them, and they will be God's people. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Then John said, in that holy city, the New Jerusalem, he said, I saw glory like radiance, like a rare jewel, like jasper, a dense red yellow quartz. But this jasper is crystal clear. John said the city has a high wall built out of crystal clear jasper. And the foundation of the wall is adorned with precious jewels, sapphire, emerald, onyx, topaz. And John said the city has 12 gates. And at each gate there stands an angel. And every gate is made out of one enormous, exquisite, gigantic pearl. And the streets of the city are pure gold, as transparent as glass. And John said there is no temple, there is no church in that city, because the Lord is there. And there is no need for sunlight or moon glow, because the city is illuminated by the glory of God. And the light of the Lamb gives eternal light to the city. And the gates of the city are never shut. And there is no night there. And nothing unclean or false can enter therein. And those who abide in that city just walk in the beautiful light. And their names are written in the Lamb's book of life. And then I hear John say, come a little bit closer. In chapter 22, he says, I want to give you a close-up view of what's going on in this blessed, celestial, eternal city. John said, I saw a river filled with crystal clear water, the water of life. A river that flowed from the throne of God. A river that ran down the middle, the main street of the city. A river that gave life to the tree of life, that stood on both sides of the river. And that tree of life bore 12 crops. Every month, 12 crops. And John said the leaves of that tree of life are good for the healing of the nations. Good for the healing of the nations. Good for the healing of the nations. Now, the only question I have is, why would there be a need for healing in heaven? You ever thought about that? If heaven is a place where there is no sickness, no sadness or sorrow, then why would John tell us about a river that gives life to a tree, that bears fruit and leaves that are good for the healing of the nations? I thought by the time we get to heaven, the nations were already supposed to be healed. My view of heaven is eternal joy, eternal bliss, eternal light, eternal rejoicing. But I've never, ever really paid much attention to the leaves on that tree. By the river of life, from the throne of God, that's good for the healing of the nations. Notice, not for the health of the nations. Health would imply that the nations are already healed. But healing, continuous, ongoing tense, indicates that in heaven there must be some healing going on. I've been thinking and praying about this. The leaves of the tree are good for the healing of the nations. Maybe heaven is not necessarily a place where there is no pain. Maybe heaven is a place where everybody who experiences pain recognizes the need for healing. I know that this world would be so much more heavenly if everybody who experienced pain recognized the need for healing. Every person of every nation. Do we really realize how sick and how dysfunctional and how pathological and distressed we become, all because we live in denial? Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Denial! We suppress pain. We camouflage hurt. We put on happy faces. But take a good look at our face. You'll see that our smiles look out of place. If you look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of our tears. If the truth be told, all of us need some kind of spiritual, clinical, emotional, psychological, social, personal, interpersonal, therapeutic healing. All of us need to be in therapy. It's not just the pain inflicted that sickens us. It is our refusal to recognize the need for healing after the pain is over that has us lingering in despondency. Sometimes the aftermath of hurt is even worse than the hurt itself. It's what you got to live with after you've been hurt that can kill you. Sometimes the emotional and psychological scars left after being abused are even worse than the abuse itself. Heaven must be a place where everybody recognizes the need for healing. Every person, every nation, every persuasion. Heaven must be a place where everybody realizes that healing is not always instantaneous. Healing is a process. John said that there is a tree of life by the river of life, bearing leaves and fruit every month, continuously. Healing is a continuous, ongoing process. There are certain wounds and hurts that cannot be healed overnight. Let me ask you, how long does it take to be healed from being raped or molested? How long? How many months? How many years? There are a whole lot of people who are walking around with smiles on their faces and pain in their hearts because they have never healed from being raped, never healed from being molested and abused. People live their whole lives in pain, never fully restored emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually. How long does it take to be healed from rape? I ain't talking about those of you who heard about rape. I'm talking about those of you who have been raped. How long does it take? When does the pain ever go away? How long does it take to be healed from being the victim of a bad educational system? How long does it take to recover from being poorly educated? Poorly educated because the school failed you. Poorly educated because you had no one at home or in the classroom to encourage you, to give you direction, to tell you how to take advantage of the time you had in school. How long does it take to live with the consequences of low or no education? Having to live your entire life only being qualified for low-paying minimum wage jobs. How long does it take to recover from having to bequeath public housing to your children and grandchildren? Because you have never been properly educated, never knew the value of education until it was too late. How long does it take to recover from living your life on minimum wage? How long does it take to be healed from the crippling consequences of no or low education? How long does it take to be healed from a legacy of 250 years of slavery? Well, I wish more of you could have been here last Friday when we looked at the movie Sankofa, looking back in order to look ahead. I know you saw Django, but I'm trying to help you to understand that some of these experiences we have to interpret for ourselves, because nobody can tell the story like the people who lived through it. How long does it take to recover from 250 years of slavery and another 150 years of Jim Crow segregation. My friend, Dr. Joy DeGruy, professor of social work at Portland State University, says that every black person in America needs to be in therapy because we have corporately as a people never been healed from the obscene atrocities of having our bodies being viewed as property because of our race in this country. How long does it take? How long does it take to heal? She says all of us are suffering with what we call post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's where the stress comes from. It's because your parents and your grandparents couldn't give you what white counterparts could give theirs. Because of the legacy of not just slavery and segregation in the past, but the subtle serpentine racism in the present. The fact that we still have to deal with labels. There's got to be something deeply dysfunctional about inheriting that kind of legacy. Look at how it plays out in our lives. Look at how dysfunctional our communities are. Look at the alarming rates of black on black crime. Look at how we have to lock our doors if we see a group of us walking in your direction at night. Excuse me, in the daytime. Look at the widespread absence of black fathers. Look at the prevalence of single black mothers. Look at the drugs and prostitution and violence that plagues the black community across the nation. Look at the economic blight, the failing schools, the closing businesses, the poor housing, the rampant black ghettos. You move into a nice neighborhood and you're saying to yourself, I hope more of us don't move in here. You ain't gonna say it out loud, but you know you be thinking it. Because seem like when things turn black, the lights go out. There's something dysfunctional, I tell you. And it's because we are still dealing with wounds that have never been healed. How long does it take to be healed from a lifetime of being stigmatized, labeled, and oppressed just because of your race? And no matter how articulate, no matter how brilliant you are, you can even get elected to be president of the United States. And somebody's going to second guess you. How long does it take to be healed from living all of your life in a racist nation? A nation that doesn't even want to talk about race, even though race is the original sin of America. How long does it take to be healed from being stigmatized, labeled, ostracized because of your gender? What is the length of recovery for a woman who has been taught all of her life that her only value is how she becomes an accessory of a man? How do women heal from that? How long does it take? How long does it take to be healed from being ridiculed and ostracized, set aside because of your sexual orientation? How long does it take to recover from the faggot jokes and the bull dyke remarks and the gay humiliation that your own brothers and sisters spout at you from time to time? How long does it take to be healed from being rejected by your own parents, ridiculed by your sisters and your brothers, disowned by your friends, condemned by your community, and damned to hell by your church? All because you can't be who people want you to be. How long does it take to be healed? How long does it take to be healed from a lifetime of being traumatized by gun violence in our society? I was in the post office the other day. There was a stack of boxes on the counter, and they fell on the floor. Bam! I hit the deck. I looked behind me. My whole line was on. I was about to run because, I ain't got to know why we're running. All I need to see is somebody running. I'm running too. Because we are traumatized. Nervous. Used to be a time when folk could drop in on you. All of a sudden you look up, they knocking on the door. Don't try that. They'll shoot you through the door. Drag you in the house and say, I found them right there. You can't surprise anybody. We are nervous. Middleton, Connecticut. Aurora, Colorado. Virginia Tech. The Victory Church parking lot. Your neighborhood and my neighborhood ravaged by gun violence. How long is it going to take for us to heal after living in this society all of our lives where we got to lock up, pack, put the alarm on, turn the spotlight on, put the gate up, put the chain on the door, call me before you come? How do we transition from that to walking on streets paved with gold and ain't nobody trying to dig up the gold? And the gates are wide open and ain't nobody worried. How long? How long does it take to be healed from living a life of being traumatized by gun violence? Where it's easier to buy a semi-automatic submachine weapon than it is to get a good education. How long does it take to be healed from a lifetime of pain? The Negro Spiritual said, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. There are some things that have happened in your life that you can't even talk about. Every now and then I'm watching a movie with my mama. We're watching something like Roots, or something like The Color Purple, or something like Mississippi Burning, and she gets quiet. And I say, Mama, what's wrong? She said, listen, this is a movie for you, but I lived through this. This was my life as a black girl in South Carolina. Sometimes she got to get up and walk out the room because there are some hurts that are so deep. There are some pains that you can't even express. There are some things that hurt you just at the very thought. The pain is still there. How long does it take to heal us from the pain that all of us have endured in this lifetime? According to Revelation, it might take eternity. Maybe when we read that God shall wipe away all tears from our eyes, maybe that's not a one-time event. Maybe we've got so many tears that we haven't even shed yet because we are trying to be strong and stoic. Maybe there are so many tears that we haven't even cried yet because we have not really dealt with the pain. Maybe it will take an eternity for God to wipe away every tear from our eyes. Maybe it will take an eternity for God to restore us to what we were originally meant to be. There's a river flowing through the downtown area. By that river, there's a tree, and the leaves, the fruit of that tree, are good for the healing of the nations. Heaven is a place where everybody recognizes the need for healing. Because while we try to camouflage and avoid and deny the fact that we've been broken and we need healing, our hurt comes out in so many other ways that are dysfunctional, pathological, and psychologically unhealthy. When everybody can recognize the need for healing, maybe that's the foretaste of glory divine. When everybody stops living in denial and nobody is perpetrating and pretending that everything in your life is okay. And nobody's trying to cover up hurt. When nobody is trying to pretend that at some point in life they have not been damaged. On a regular basis, everyone from every nation makes their way to this tree beside this river flowing from the throne of God to get what they need for their healing. I hope you found the Victory Celebration broadcast to be inspirational. I'd like to personally invite you to come join us here for worship at the Victory Church. We are located at 1170 North Hairston Road in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Sunday school classes begin at 8:45 a.m. We have a number of adult classes as well as classes for teens and children. Sunday worship begins at 10 a.m. On Wednesday evening, we gather for wonderful Wednesday worship at 7:30 p.m. It is a casual service, so bring the whole family and join us.
Thank you for joining us today on Victory for the World Church. If you need prayer or a church home, call us today at 678-476-6000. Victory for the World Church is made possible by viewers like you, so please take the time to visit us online and make your donation at victoryfortheworld.org. Until next time, God bless you.